following program is produced by the AM First Radio Network and distributed by Global American Broadcasting, the GAB Radio Network.
Thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali. I am attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew, Rosa Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Dr. Kir Bashir, and Andrea Rodeman. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our community. This week, our topic is the psychosis of racism and fear of black excellence. Is white supremacy an illusion? So I'm going to begin this segment by an article that I read by Alvin Poussant, who is he's a physician. Actually, he's a psychiatrist, well known for his research on the effects of racism in the black community. He is the dean of students at Harvard Medical School, and his work in psychiatry is influenced greatly by the civil rights movement in the South, which he joined in 1965. And the article that he wrote that I'm going to read from is Extreme Racism a Mental Illness? And he says that after several racist killings in the civil rights era, a group of black psychiatrists sought to have extreme bigotry classified as a mental disorder. So this is his suggestion, and as far as suggesting this under the American Psychiatric Association to classify extreme racism as a psychiatric disorder or a psychotic disorder. He says that he defines it as a delusion whose theme is that a group of individuals who share a defining characteristic in one's environment have a particular and unusual significance. These delusions are usually of a negative or pejorative nature, but also may be grandiose in content. When these delusions are extreme, the person may act out by attempting to harm and even murder members of a despised group. Says extreme racist delusions can also occur as a major symptom in other psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. Persons suffering delusions usually have serious social dysfunction that impairs their ability to work with others and maintain employment. And he says that it's time for the American Psychiatric Association to designate extreme racism as a mental health problem by recognizing it as a delusional psychotic symptom. Persons afflicted with such psychosis represent an immediate danger to themselves and to others, right? So, you know, one of the things that I've always stated when we talked about the issue of racism is that, first of all, I've never really been a big fan of the term racism because I thought of it as more of a sickness. You know, I think that you give it some degree of legitimacy when you refer to it as racism, right? You know, just without looking, I always say we should look at it as these people being psychotic, or you know, it being some sort of sickness, right? And unfortunately, you know, we kind of define it in a way which gives it some degree of power, right? And which is extremely, you know, untrue when you think about the whole idea of racism. And I'm not really a big fan of the narrative that we have when we talk about the issue of racism. I mean, I'm not a fan of it at all. And oftentimes the narrative that we usually describe it, or whenever we talk about the issue of racism, is always from the perspective of supremacy, right, or privilege. And from us being somewhat of victims, right? And that gives it power that that is not realistic, nor power that I believe that it actually deserves, right? And so, they've been able to capitalize on the narrative just simply because of our own internalized racism by allowing someone to, uh, impose their mental, because oftentimes, I mean, when people are suffering from mental diseases or from mental problems, oftentimes people who are around those individuals have to suffer the wrath of that particular psychosis. And after a while, it has, an impact on those individuals, right? Which has happened to us as African Americans or black people here in America. So one of the major things that we have to do as black people is we have to definitely change the narrative as it relates to their so-called privilege or their so-called supremacy. Now, I know that lately there's been a lot of conversation and a lot of talk about, Kanye West and this situation, about Kyrie Irving and his situation, and how, and then how individuals were so quick to go to criticize both Kyrie and Kanye from our own community, and how they should have, I think a lot of what, and even when they talked about, who were some of the suspects in that situation, it was Charles Barkley, Shaq, who else? Stephen A. Smith, and who else?
LeBron spoke out too.
Yeah,
and you had LeBron that made a statement about the issue, and and so people been on them,
Yeah.
about them making that statement, and then you had, of course, LeBron, who came back later on and asked the press about why didn't they ask him about Jerry Jones and the fact that he was captured in a picture during apparently it was in Arkansas when they had some black students who were, I guess, being escorted or in the process of segregating into a school, and this mob was outside and his picture was seen there. So he wanted to know why wasn't that brought out?
Exactly.
Right. So, I look at it and I think that when, is that the best way to, and then of course when they came out and they made those statements and they were critical of them, I think a lot of it was, I'm not quite sure why they were so quick to go out without trying to necessarily understand. And to be quite honest with you, I'm not so sure that they probably even saw the video that he posted. I think that a lot of times we feed off of sound bites and we just make assumptions, and it was an opportunity for whatever reason for them to, to go out and make those condemnations, especially against Kyrie, which seemed to be a little bit quick to criticize. Now, and when you kind of break up that issue with Kyrie and his posting, and let's just analyze that from in a light that's most favorable to Kyrie, right? I mean, if he's looking at, just keep in mind, this is something that he got off of Amazon. Amazon just recently refused to take it off his platform, right? Isn't it Amazon?
Yeah.
They refused to take it off the platform, and there is no Amazon's not apologizing. Nobody's boycotting Amazon.
That's right.
It's been, and in fact, the scuttlebutt is that it played in a movie owned by Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, in a movie theater owned by Shaquille O'Neal, right? So that makes it questionable about why Kyrie, who's looking at his social media, sees that he posted, then all of a sudden it becomes an issue when it's been on that platform and nobody has said anything about it, right? That seems to be, relatively unfair. But let's just assume you're looking, there's a film or there's a book or whatever it is, and like in many cases, there can always be something about a film or a book or anything where there may be something that you agree with, and there may be parts of it that you don't agree with, right?
Right.
And does that negate the fact that of what you're trying to express, right? And let me give you a great example of why it's unfair if you're going to use that analysis. And I'll use this analysis. Let's just say that the America as a nation, right? I would think that most of us, when we talk about America, we're going to go through the first break, and when we talk about America, I think that most of us have positive things at some point to say about the ideals of America, right?
Yeah.
When you say I'm a citizen of this country, and there's greatness in this country, does that mean that if you say America's great, or you go and you serve America, you serve your country as a veteran, as many black people have done, in light of the fact of what America has done to people, right? Such as the centuries of slavery, such as the Jim Crow, such as COINTELPRO, such as many things that our nation, without question, has done bad, right? Does the fact that you say that America is a great nation, does its spotty past, does that negate the greatness of it, or does it negate the fact that America is a great nation? The point I'm trying to make is I'm trying to use this as an analogy, is that you cannot say that if a person says that America is a great nation, you can automatically condemn that individual because it says that you're co-signing the ugliness that we have in our history, right? Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
And it's the same thing when you're saying, okay, I'm looking at this film, or I'm looking at this documentary, and there's some things in this documentary that may be inaccurate.
Correct.
And if I co-sign this documentary that may have some negative things in it, does that mean that I co-sign the negative aspects of it?
No.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that, for example, whether it is an artist, or whether it is, and when I say artist, I mean an actor or an actress or a songwriter or a movie or a documentary, or whatever the case may be, there sometimes you can, let me give you like Wakanda Forever. Now for me, I like the movie.
Okay.
Right? But there are a lot of people that say that it's a terrible movie because they take all the black man completely out of it. It's a movie about black women, and then the black man is just completely. They couldn't find a black man to take over for Chadwick Boseman to be the Black Panther.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, if Superman died, or if the person playing Superman died, would they get rid of the character and let a woman play Superman or Batman? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you've completely got rid of this character. He's dead, and now all of a sudden you put a woman in this place. So there's individuals that were very critical of the movie because of that concept that they used, and we've heard a lot about that, right?
Correct.
But I personally like the movie.
Yeah. Right.
But I understand what they're saying.
Exactly.
You see what I'm saying?
Got it.
Because whether people believe it or not, black people can chew gum and walk at the same time. Right? We are intelligent enough to look at something and differentiate between what is good and what is bad. Yeah. There's no absolutes in anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, if as you grow and you become intelligent, it just doesn't work. It's almost like me saying that for me to have a relationship with considering our past, right? Mm-hmm. If someone says, because you have a relationship with white people, then that's bad because you know what white people did to us. Yeah. Could you make that argument?
I mean, you could.
You see what I'm saying?
You could. Yeah,
so the point I'm trying to make is that an irrational excuse that he said he had it, he didn't look, whatever. There's parts of it he didn't believe in, and he doesn't co-sign. And if I hurt somebody, I'm sorry. Right?
Yeah.
That seems very much, that's overboard.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously that seems very rational to me because, it insults his intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because it says that, you don't know better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That you cannot look at a movie or a documentary and say that there's things when it's and primarily what he is saying is it has to do with the fact that they're saying that people of African descent may be the original Hebrews. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
Well, there's people, does that sound, that's not new.
Right.
That's
not at all.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying that, but then when somebody of his caliber says it, is that what, is that really where, you're upset about? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
exactly.
His platform. I can say it all day.
Right.
Nobody is just going to be us, but, letting it to the masses. So that's where the problem comes in.
So it's just like anything, sometimes you have to pick and you have to choose your fights.
Yes.
Just like if someone says, okay, Jerry Jones, because he was standing outside of that school with people that were mobbing to criticize the integration of the school, then that means that he's basically, a white supremacist. Mm-hmm. Can I come to that conclusion? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, you see what I mean? So in other words, what I'm saying is that basically, he says he's not a white supremacist. Mm-hmm. He said he's not racist. Are there things that he has done in his adult life recently that would suggest otherwise? Right?
Right.
But am I going to hang my hat on that picture? Right? So the point that someone is saying is like, okay, one is as much of a stretch as the other.
Exactly.
Now, if he's in a picture where this happened, there's no way that he possibly could have been standing there and not have been a white supremacist because there's no way two things, that's impossible.
Yeah.
Just like there's no way that someone can look at a movie or a documentary that has negative things in it that you like. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's just like there's certain rap songs that I like. Yeah. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely lyrics that I don't co-sign.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things I hear and it's like, man, he didn't even have to say that.
Exactly.
Because that would have still been that's a hot song.
Yeah.
It's a hot hook. It's just hot. And then he had to go there. Why was he saying that?
Exactly.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I still like it. And I still bump it. Mm-hmm. Right? If I'm in my car.
That's the truth.
You see what I'm saying?
That's the truth. My struggle all the time.
Right. So I think that, it is a play on our intelligence, but this is really what's happening. This is to show you the power that we have that we don't realize. Mm-hmm. I was watching a guy that was interviewing some people on YouTube. Mm-hmm. I watched one in Japan and I watched one in Korea.
Okay.
And they were going around and they were asking, what do you thought about black people? These were younger people. Mm-hmm. And their embracing of our culture is unbelievable.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the culture of the when you think of American culture, and we've talked about this before, whether you go to anywhere in Asia and in Europe or whatever, you know, if you go to Europe and you see a black person from Nigeria, from Ghana, that's never been to the U.S., but is in London, they're going to dress like us.
Yeah.
When you hear those guys that are rapping in Africa, they're rapping like us.
Correct.
Yeah.
So our culture is so, I think that it's more than we even realize. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That younger people in different places have embraced our swag.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, that's the threat right there.
That is the threat.
That's the threat
Yeah.
right there,
Yes.
that we can influence the world with our cultural values and the things that
And
we do,
that's the
and we
problem.
influence the whole world. That's where the problem
That's
comes.
where the fear is coming from.
Exactly,
Yeah.
like you say, we're the champs, and so therefore, when Kyrie Irving get up there, it's not just something small.
Right.
It's something great because they
Right.
see a threat in that this can be. It's just like when the stuff happened with George Floyd. It was all over the world. People were protesting in every country almost.
Right.
So when you have that type of influence, and then you have someone that with a platform that can put this out and have people go look at a documentary or go read a book, that's a threat.
It's absolute threat.
Yeah.
And,
You know?
and that's the fear.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The fear isn't like he just tweeted it and that it's like, you know, there may be things that are questionable that by him doing it, they don't want people to know.
To wake up.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So my thing I thought it was extremely unfair for them to do that, right? And this is another thing, is what about, let's say Kanye'd be tripping, but I have to say that,
Yeah.
you know, but let's say when he said that, you know, the situation he said about slavery was a choice. Well, what did Nike do? Who does it? Is it Adidas?
Adidas.
What did Adidas do?
They didn't
Yeah.
do nothing.
What
Not at all.
did any of those platforms
Vincent
that
Iger and all of them,
They
they didn't
didn't
do
do
nothing.
nothing.
right?
Yeah,
So why not?
because it's not a threat to them.
Yeah, it's a black man speaking against
right.
something
Yeah.
they don't want to talk about anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. So my point is that if you're going to do that, you need to do it with the same intensity. With no matter what he said, it should have been the same reaction. It should
Right.
have said, you know what, we're going to cut ties with Kanye West because of what he said was extremely insensitive to African Americans. To say that, that's extremely insensitive to say something like that was a choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So, you know, I mean, and that's where I'm going with it. If you're going to do that, if you're going to start trying to cancel people because of, you know, these things that you perceive to be insensitive, then you need to be consistent about
Right.
what you're doing.
Right.
But also it goes back to, even if you create music that promotes black on black crime, right? You can hear about that all day long.
Right.
But if I promote some music talking about some gays or something like that, then it's an issue.
Oh, immediately.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's a big issue
Yeah.
with that,
Well-
and so there's that double standard there. You know, so I mean,
Well,
that's
if
it's
they
money
want
maker.
to talk about insensitive, why don't they talk about the way that the Ethiopian Jews are treated in Israel?
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
How they're discriminated against.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Who have been, you know, we talk about having, you know, this genetic connection, who they were actually proven to have DNA connected to what would consider them so-called Hebrew.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And then you're going to discriminate against those individuals, but nobody says anything. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's where it comes into play. And that's where we talk about the whole. There's a psychosis behind it. It makes you act irrationally, and it actually makes you act. It's delusional.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And sometimes I feel like that's and we have to understand. We have to step back and we have to look at, the narrative that we're creating when we act like that we're victims. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The reality of it is that they're the ones that have issues, not us.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Even though there may be, the issues that obviously we have, and we can do a lot of things better as a community.
Absolutely.
The focus cannot be on what they're going to give us or what they're going to do for us. We have to collectively understand our power and to understand our greatness.
Yeah.
Because they definitely do.
Yeah, but we understand that. If we come to terms and we begin to understand that, how great of an influence and the great power that we do have, it's a done deal.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you was talking about the great influence that we have over all these different, whether it be in a different country or a different state, I thought about something where I saw a documentary a while back over in Japan, where they had these dudes that was doing this whole lowrider club, and they was claiming Crip and Blood. I'm like, how do you see what I'm saying? That's just the influence that you have, and whenever you go into, man, it's just great. And I don't think we understand the power, the greatness that we have in just our overall makeup and how much influence we have over the culture, over people in the world,
Yeah.
I mean, and it is. I mean, and what it came out of. I mean, the fact that when you think about hip hop and how hip hop is basically a global empire at this point, and that people are trying to figure out ways to capitalize on it, right? I mean, we have the product.
Yeah.
We don't have to necessarily have the resources that we need, but we definitely have the product.
Yeah.
And and I'm gonna be prejudiced right now, and say that, and specifically as it relates to us in this country, in America,
Okay.
as African Americans, everybody's emulating us.
Yeah.
That's true.
Even on the continent, even in of the diaspora. We're the ones that are influencing more than anyone else.
Correct.
Although it is what we had to suffer and what we went through. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's what they talked about. They said, when you talk to someone and you think about that culture, the cool culture of America, you're going to think about the African American experience, in our culture and the way we do things, and our talent.
Yeah.
And what we're able to. I mean, we're just extremely, talented people.
And you can go to any country and sell out a stadium. I mean, you can take a country music star and take him to Japan or China, and he's probably not going to sell that out. And that's just speaking real. Yeah. But if you take Drake or you take one of these other, they're going to sell that concert out.
Yeah.
So that just shows you the influence that you have,
Right.
But even when you look back at some of the old, like I used to trip back and sit back and look at some of the old school music that they had with the Temptations and the Motown. Motown influenced everybody. Everybody loved the oldies,
Yeah.
I mean, you can catch cats word down the street, Mexican Americans, and they had a lowriders and they listened to, nothing but Motown, know?
Right.
So this, like you say, it's a great influence, and that's the thread in it all.
That's also that's the fear, and that's what we are stolen from. And anytime that we have shown, like, talk about Black Wall Street, there was a time where we knew what we had and we tried to build, and then what happened? It was burned down and come after you. And it's like if we elevate ourselves, we're taking something from them. That's where the fear is coming from. Yeah. If we elevate, that means we're taking something from them.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the sad part.
Yeah. And again, I mean, that's going to the whole idea of, that's why I say supremacy is an illusion.
Right.
Because I mean, if you're supreme, then you don't do anything to go after
somebody, yeah.
somebody else.
Yeah, you
Because
don't
you're
have to.
conscious
'Cause
and
you,
know who you are.
Right.
right, yeah, you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a fighter that how they say they would, some fighters, they would put certain things on their gloves,
Yeah.
get in somebody's
Right,
eye, or they
right.
would do something, something slick. But if you're really supreme, you don't have to do any of those things.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's what happens is that basically, if you're truly superior and you're truly supreme, then you would have to do nothing.
Yeah.
There's no, when you make a concerted effort to destroy someone, why are you trying to destroy them?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's almost like a pimp. I always do these pimp analogies.
I was just about to say that.
But it's just like a pimp
Yeah.
and a prostitute. Why does he? What is the idea of the pimp trying to mentally degrade the prostitute? Why is he trying to do that? Because he's trying to convince her that she
control.
needs him, and she don't really need him.
Right.
But in her mind, they do things like that. Like, you can't do nothing without me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And without, and then they would say they would do things to like put them down, put you down, and then your self-esteem is gone.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the only way that you can move up or be accepted is to show your loyalty to the pimp
Right.
Exactly.
and to be his bottom
Yeah.
Exactly.
prostitute. You see what I'm saying?
That's how I do my
And that's how, that's why I say America and especially the whole racial thing
Yeah.
is the ultimate pimp game.
Yeah. That's
You
true.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of times when you talk about and that's that whole the whole side, the fear is she's gonna leave you and go somewhere else. I remember I was watching on YouTube a clip from the Mac, and when he took one of the not the Mac himself,
Yeah,
but the other guy.
yeah.
And they were in the pool hall.
Yeah.
and Richard Pryor was there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you're talking about.
And he was saying he took her away. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the fear.
Exactly.
The fear is that basically, she gonna go somewhere else.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what they scared of.
Yeah.
They're fearful of.
Exactly.
We're powerful beyond means. But we can't get past not understanding why someone is doing something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you hear if there's certain things like when a prostitute wants to leave her pimp, she often asks him, "Well, why won't you let me go?"
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because she knows that basically if she's damaged goods if she leaves them, because there's codes among pimps,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so and sometimes that's the rhetoric, because you're free to leave,
Yeah.
but you don't understand it because mentally you're damaged and you don't understand your power.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's with us.
That's
we're,
with us.
We're mentally
damaged.
and we don't understand our power.
Correct.
And how powerful we really are.
Yeah. And just the way it's been broke down so far today, I think it gave me a different look or different perspective as how I see it now. When you was talked about just the overall influence and stuff over the different cultures. And I think that the great majority of us see it totally different. We don't see it like that, and we don't accept it like that. Sometimes we can't describe it. We don't know where it comes from, and so we just let it be as it is. But those who try to find out where it's at, it's always, they just trying to make us. But why are you trying to make you feel inferior?
Yeah.
What is the root? What is the root cause of all this? Because they're always in psychology. Let's go back down to the root of everything in order to figure this thing out.
Right.
And I think if we go back down to the root as we done today in terms of the overall influence that we have, so you'll be able to understand when you see, the Wesley Snipes, the Bill Cosby's, all of these different people that we know that's been put on public display, and everything's been snatched away from them in order to make you believe that, look, you can never get to this status because of this. And it's not so much that we just taking it from them, but it's the fact that they have a lot of influence. In order to get to certain platform, they can influence so many amount of people just with their platform. And so that's the overall threat. It's a bigger threat than just, okay, we just here in America. You know? And I think that's the way we look at it. Oh, we just here in America, so we can only influence America, but it's bigger. It's global. You know? So I, I think that we start seeing it like that, then we'll once we recognize it, then we'll understand it a little bit better.
And I think that's where the fear of, because I was thinking about, do you remember when all this woke stuff started? I mean, years ago. Like, I've been woke for many years, right? And that was a good thing. But now they putting negative connotations on the word woke. Why is that? Because the more people that are waking up, they're starting to see a little bit of a change. I feel when you were talking about getting to the root of it, like where it stems from, this stuff has been historically, that's how this nation was made, on racism. Even though you don't agree with that word, it was made on racism, right? So if I go into the schools starting that young, letting them see, well, you know what, you guys kind of been learning a messed up history, you know, this is the truth of it, right? You got to start somewhere, and then you start changing the minds of these young black kids, seeing like, oh, wait a minute, I am great. I am. That's where it starts, and that's why you have to have control over critical race theory, all of that stuff that they were trying to teach, and they're trying to stop it. That's where it stems from. We got to get there first. Get the minds of these youngsters first, and that is. I think that's the answer, actually. I believe that is the answer.
But even if you want to look back to, ancient Egypt, the pyramids were there first.
Exactly.
And people emulate it.
And people emulate that.
All over. I mean, there's pyramids other places, but they recognize the ones in Egypt as being the first ones.
Right.
So this been going on. This been here for years. And even when I look back at technology and things even if you want to go into technology and things that has been created.
Right.
Like if you research where the first cell phone come from. A lot of people don't know where the first cell phone come from. The patent was sold for $1. It was a black man.
Right.
So I'm just saying that, everything started somewhere, and we just have to understand our greatness, and the great majority of the people have to understand that there's a significant reason behind Kanye West being treated the way he's being treated for what he said, Irvin being treated the way, it's just not just for some, just for some, it's always something behind it, It's bigger.
And the thing is that they've always had a motive. And the motive, what I mean by that is historically, there was never any. I don't think we really paid much attention. Now, I would imagine in early times, especially as Africans, would we had ever really paid any attention to the fact of our skin color or what we were doing. I mean, I don't think that racism was really introduced because at that time it wasn't based upon color. You're talking about tribalism, and you're talking about the indigenous people of almost any land are always people of color, right?
Nothing to do,
And so I think that when you have individuals who, I think that when you think of the thousands of years ago or hundreds of centuries ago, when you had individuals that were on this quest to try to go outside of where they were and try to snatch as much as you possibly can. I think at some point in time you realize that they understood that to their credit, so to speak, is understanding the psychology of it all. They understood the psychology, like when we think about in the 1960s when the FBI were doing certain things to black groups. They understood how you would pit one group against each other.
Right.
We know that it's not like I'm making something up. It's like the Freedom of Information Act is true. They were pitting the United Slaves against the Black Panther Party and even Black Panther Party individuals against each other.
Yeah.
The things that they were doing to Dr. King and threatening what they were gonna give his wife, and what they were doing with Malcolm and the Nation of Islam.
Yep.
This is what you were doing domestically.
Right.
And it wasn't like you just woke up one day and said, "Okay, let's try this game." We're going to do something to try to create a wedge between these organizations or between these people because of the mind game.
But see, that's the same game that's being played right now. The same game that was played with the US organization and the Black Panther, Malcolm and Martin or whoever it was. It's the same thing that's being played right now with Shaq making these comments against Kyrie Irving, Barkley making these comments, Stephen A. Smith making these. That's the same game. It's the divide and conquer.
Yeah.
It's the same game.
And you're creating, this propaganda.
Exactly.
Because they say the first casualty of war is what? The truth.
The truth, yeah.
Right? and that's kind of the game to play. Just like, I tell people that, the mind is so powerful. And I would tell, as a young man, I remember when I went to boot camp as a Marine. And I remember before we graduated, the drill instructor told us as we're standing, at attention, he says, "You are now a Marine. You will never die. You will go to hell, and you will regroup."
Oh,
right?
Wow.
They had my head. They had my mind.
Yeah. Woo.
I had to, maybe the statute of limitations is gone now, but I might would have killed you over the Marine Corps back then if you would have said something about the Marines, because they literally within that time period of being in boot camp, they had my head.
Right. Right.
And it was all in your mind. The whole point of having you doing all these things that seem silly and seem ridiculous was they were trying to, it was all in your mind. They were getting in your head.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All those games that they played. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and that's really the way that they're playing. Even when they, like even during the Cold War, some of the things that they were doing to our enemies that we were able to defeat without even going into battle, because they would do things with people and create a coups.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? From their people.
Exactly.
So they would go in there and they would train the people, and they tell people this and tell people that.
Yep.
You go in there, man, and you snatch the president.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You see old Gaddafi, he looked bad when they got him.
Yeah.
But the people turned against him.
Exactly.
And so that's the and that's happened many different times.
Correct.
And that's why on the continent, if you listen and you hear these Pan-Africanists talk, and they always talking about colonial powers, how the colonial powers have came here and created this, or the colonial powers came in and did this and did that. You're like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? And they're blaming them for coming in, and they think that somehow, some way, that these were puppets.
Yeah.
And when they didn't do what they wanted, what they were supposed to do, then they would go get the people to turn against them and do it. I mean, that's the art of war.
Yeah, it was good at it too.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I think that as people, we need to realign our thinking and our narrative and understand, our own greatness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And understanding that, how do we, the ultimate question that we always are trying to address in every segment is, how do we improve? How do we deal with our problems, and how do we deal with our crisis? And the point that we always try to come up with is that it really begins with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's real.
You know what I mean? And that's why I don't spend too much time, and as little as possible, talking about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Only as a point of reference.
Exactly.
But in the final analysis is that, they want you to feel hopeless. You know what I mean? Just like a pimp.
Right.
They want a prostitute to feel hopeless. Like she can't do nothing without the pimp.
Right.
Right.
Like she's asking them, "Hey, can I go to school tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
Can I go to class?" Well, no, you need to be on the blade
Right.
Yeah.
tomorrow, right? I done told you you need to put 80 hours in a week,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So you need to be there. Okay, Daddy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
real.
I
Exactly.
can't go to school. Well, why not? He didn't say I'm gonna kill you.
Right. Right.
He didn't say I'm gonna come and snatch you.
Mm-hmm.
He's done messed with your head so much
What?
that you don't even know
Yeah.
that all you have to do is get out of the game and go to school.
Exactly.
But that's how they
Correct.
have you in your head, and
Exactly.
and it's the same psychosis.
Exactly.
It is exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And they're only limited by that.
Mm-hmm.
That's
You know
true.
what I mean?
Yeah. And then it's those that will sit back and say, well, we can't do nothing until we get a leader.
Right.
That part, yes.
You know, and he sit back.
Always waiting
where,
for
where is he
somebody.
gonna come from? You
Right.
waiting for somebody, and you are the leader of yourself.
Right.
You know, it starts with you. You know, and if a lot of people start thinking like that, then maybe we'll start seeing this change. But until you sit back, like you said, we're so mentally damaged to where believe that we can't accomplish anything. And like you say, I think you hit it on the head when you said you only use these certain analogies as a point of reference, because I think a lot of us get to the point where we can't do nothing because white man got us this and white man, and that sets us back right then and there. For us to believe like that, that sets us back. So I understand when people say, stop using that as the excuse.
Right.
You know?
But you gotta
Yeah.
get out of your own head. That's we got
'Cause it-
pimped. We got pimped.
Right.
I mean, you know, that's where the control is in your mind. You know, ooh, let me stop.
Yeah, I mean it is. I mean that's exactly the way it is. Is that you should never be in an environment or in a situation where you feel like, you know, you're defeated.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you always have to be in that situation, and oftentimes that's what really leads us sometimes down the wrong path.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Because
Yes.
you know when you're talking, it's like what they're not going to allow me to do.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is that, you know, once you understand your greatness, then, you know, it's very hard to stop you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
You
you
know.
can't be scared either. You can't be scared by what you see in society in terms of people being made examples of and use that. And I give you a prime example. My kids was just, when I was walking out the house, they was watching the Underground Railroad. And, you know, the part where they had the slave who had ran away and he was up there being
Yeah.
whipped, right?
Yeah.
And my daughter was sitting back and she was watching, like she was cringing. And she said, ooh, I would never run away.
Ooh.
And my
Yeah.
son say, that's what they don't want you to do. That's the reason why they did what they
Yeah.
did. But it's the same thing. They place people up there. They make example of them, and you sit back in your little hut and say, I don't want to do it forward. I don't want to do nothing.
Right.
Because they're gonna keep me down.
Right.
You know. So that's the type of mentality that we see all the time.
Yeah.
You know. So.
I mean, we always make. I mean, that's number one is make an example of people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of what, you know, what we're dealing with. And, you know, I mean, when you were mentioning some of these individuals that they've basically crucified for public display just in order to send a message to people. And I think that it's starting to backfire a little bit. I think that people are reacting and responding differently than they expected.
Yeah. It's
You know what I
changing.
mean? I mean, and now people are really being put on the spot who kind of want to, you know, appease the pimp.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, you know, and it's, you know, the bottom prostitute is always gonna, you know what I mean? She's always gonna go and just say, "Why you out of line? Didn't he tell you to go on the blade? Why you going to school?"
That's right.
And then the pimp don't even have to beat you because the bottom prostitute is gonna beat you.
Yeah.
He don't even have to do anything.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
That
Because
mind
she gonna
control.
come to his rescue because everybody wants to be the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's that
Right.
mind control.
Right. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? You think I'm gonna give up this situation that I'm in?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't really mean anything because you're just as much of a, you know,
How is the rest of them? I'll say.
but they don't. but you don't see it. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what we got, you know, going on. So we just have to it's basically, if you want to understand America, you have to read, the books that were written for pimps.
Yeah.
Right.
Right?
We're gonna talk about this pimp thing after the show.
Because
Yeah.
it's the same.
It's
I'm
the same
telling
thing.
you.
Same
Yeah.
thing, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's
what
just-
was that? Carter G. Woodson said that if you can control a man's thinking and you try to tell him to go out the back door, and if there's not a back door, they will create a back door just to go through.
Just to go through.
Yeah, because you have control over his mind.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's
That's
where we
deep.
stand.
That's
yeah.
deep and that's real.
And
real.
and that's the thing that they want. I mean, it's just like slavery.
Mm-hmm.
The physical enslavement of a person is not as detrimental as the psychosis of slavery,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise you would have been an indentured servant.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying? And so when you think about the institution of slavery, when people say slavery has existed forever, well, yeah, it has existed forever, because there was no employer-employee relationship.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That, if I lived by the water and I fished and you had yams, then we bartered. But if I
Exactly.
go to some other tribe and work for some other tribe, I'm their slave.
Mm-hmm.
So the indentured servants was the slaves.
Exactly.
But what we did was different.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like this is what commonly happens in human history
Yeah.
when it comes to slaves.
Yeah.
And when they talk about the biblical perspective of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and that's what changed us, is that they didn't, because slavery traditionally, historically, because now it's a dirty name, was a human institution. Slavery was a human institution. But we were not treated like humans. The indentured servants were treated like humans.
Exactly.
Right.
We were not treated there. That's a different. The term gives it way too much credit, and it's a misnomer,
Yeah.
because we were not slaves.
Exactly.
And I'm not trying to co-sign or justify what many of these tribes did when they sold their so-called people
Yeah.
into slavery, but we do know that oftentimes those were people who were people who were captured.
Who were captured.
They were prisoners of war.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That they sold.
Mm-hmm. And
But-
religion played a lot into it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, again, I think and I hope that that people will begin to start trying to properly understand when we talk about racism, that you can't give it that much power.
Right.
That they're diabolical and they're sick.
Yeah.
Anyone who thinks like that, they're just sick.
They're sick, yeah.
They're
It is a
delusional.
mental
They're
illness.
sick. And don't give them no power. That's not supremacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're just a sick person.
Yeah.
And we should replace the word racism with
Nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
You're listening to an encore presentation of this program, KCAA, the Inland Talk Express.
The views and opinions expressed by individuals on the following program do not necessarily reflect those of the network,